All right, we are back on the record in 2022 CR 5923, State of Texas versus Alex Arazola. All right, so Mr. Arazola, I had asked you to take a UA, but my understanding is that you think you will be positive.
I'm ready to take it.
I'm sorry, just one.
Yes, I couldn't take one because I was adding drinking up water.
No, here's the thing, we're not playing games here. And let me just tell you, we waited here this morning for you to do a UA.
Yes.
You said you needed water, and then you informed probation that you might be positive.
Yes, I did tell her.
Yes, so what are you might be positive for? Because we're not doing this thing where you go drink some water.
Until the judge finishes.
We're not doing this thing where you say you might be positive and we're sitting waiting for a UA, and then you go drink water, and then you pray to whomever you're praying to that it be something else. So I'm asking you now, what drugs have you been using? And don't tell me that you've never used drugs before. You don't use meth, because we're here for a meth case.
That's what I said, man.
So what have you been using, and how often have you been using meth?
No, it was methamphetamine, whatever it was used for.
Well, don't do that, whatever it was used
No, I
for.
said it was meth,
All right, and
but I've been using. That's all I said, man.
all right, and how often have you been using meth?
The last time I used it was like a week ago. That's why I told her I wasn't clear. I wasn't sure if I was clean or not. That's
All
all I
right.
said, man. I didn't say I wasn't playing game. I wasn't playing games. I'm sorry.
All right.
Took it that way. I'm sorry.
So do you have any children?
Yes, I do.
What are their ages?
It's my daughter, Alexis, is 17 years old, and I have 3 stepkids.
All right. And you're saying that you live with the stepchildren?
No, my daughter lives with me. I have that, we have custody. She stays with her mom, and then when my days she comes.
No, I'm talking about the stepchildren. Are they living with you?
No, they don't. They don't live with me. My stepkids do not live with me.
So who do you live with?
At my own house, 5458 Magnus. It's me, my mom, and my dad.
Okay.
That's my household right there.
All right. Is there anything else? All right. This is what
I
the,
work for the city of San Antonio. That's where I work.
all right. This is what the court is going to do. There's $1,000 fine that'll be probated. This is run concurrent with 6-8-3103. There's restitution of $57 to SAPD for drug testing. I'm going to want a TAP evaluation. And whatever TAP evaluation says, it's going to be intensive outpatient treatment to start. There's going to be 90 meetings in 90 days. Proof of employment within 30 days. There's to be no employment as a home healthcare provider or with minors. There's to be no unsupervised contact with minors. Regular reporting by Zoom or in person. And you can do the UA hotline or the drug patch. And the UA hotline, when they call you, you need to report to them within 24 hours. And I'm going to want field visits 2 times per month, and probation field visits. If you all want them to count as his reporting, they can count as reporting. Is there anything else that he needs probation?
Oh, Your Honor, I didn't hear you say anything about community service hours.
150 hours of community service restitution. 40 of those hours will be waived if you provide the proof of the COVID vaccination. The court is not requiring you to get that, but if you do, 40 of those hours will be waived. Parenting classes with triple T. And once you complete the parenting classes, the remaining of the community service hours will be waived. Is there anything else you need from the court?
The 40 hours. What was that?
Okay. Is there anything else you need from the court to be successful in this probation? Yeah, I'm asking you. All right, I'm showing you what's entitled Trial Court Certification of Defendant's Rights to Appeal. Did you review that document with your attorney? Did you understand it and did you sign it? because this is a plea bargain agreement, because I followed your plea bargain agreement, I'm sorry. There's one other thing I didn't add. It's 5 years deferred adjudication. Okay. Now I'm showing you what's entitled trial court certification of defendant's rights to appeal. Did you review that with your attorney? Did you understand it and did you sign it?
Yes, good.
Because this is a plea bargain agreement, because I followed your plea bargain agreement, because you waive your right to appeal, you do not have the court's permission to appeal. Do you understand? All right, good luck to you. You better start doing better. You're welcome. Thank you. God bless you too. All right, the court is calling 2019 CR 13278 and 2019 CR 9156, State of Texas versus Tracy Philpatrick. Can I have parties announced for the record for the state,
Marcus Sanders.
for the defense?
Robert Barrett for Mr. Fitzpatrick.
And are you Mr. Fitzpatrick? Counsel, in each of the cause numbers, I'm showing you what's entitled discovery acknowledgement. Have you received the discovery in each of these cases, and did you review that with your client? In each of the cause numbers, the court will find that the state is in compliance with discovery. Mr. Fitzpatrick, in each of the cause numbers, I'm showing you what's entitled true bill of indictment. Did you review those documents with your attorney? Did you understand them? Counsel, do you waive the reading of the indictment? State, are you proceeding on the indictments as presented?
Yes, Judge, in both causes.
Ms. Fitzpatrick, in each of the cause numbers, I'm showing you what's entitled court admonishments and defendants waivers and affidavit of admonitions. Did you review those documents with your attorney? Did you understand them? And did you sign them in all the appropriate places? And cause number 2019 CR 13278, you're charged with the offense of assault public servant bodily injury as a third-degree felony. The range of punishment is anywhere from 2 to 10 years in prison and up to $10,000 fine. And cause number 2019 CR 9156, you're charged with the offense of aggravated assault with a deadly weapon. And up to $10,000 fine. Did you understand? If you have a plea bargain agreement with the state in either of these cause numbers, the court doesn't have to follow your plea. If for any reason the court doesn't follow your plea and gives you more than you bargained for, the fact that you entered a plea will not be used against you and you will be allowed to withdraw your plea. Did you understand? In each of the cause numbers, you have a right to jury trial, a right for you or your attorney to cross-examine and confront any witnesses the state would call in the right to remain silent. Did you understand? Did you understand by entering a plea bargain agreement in each of these cause numbers, you were giving up those rights? And did you intend to give up those rights and enter into pleas in each of these cause numbers? Counsel, in each of the cause numbers, has your client been able to provide you with any defenses?
He's been able to assist in this defense, and I believe he's competent.
All right. Do you believe he has a rational as well as a factual understanding of the charges against him?
Yes,
Do you believe he was sane at the time of the offenses?
I do.
Mr. Fitzpatrick, has anyone threatened you, coerced you, or placed you in fear to get you to enter these pleas? Has anyone promised you anything other than the plea? Are you satisfied with the way you've been represented?
Yes.
Are you a U.S. citizen?
Yes.
In each of the cause numbers, the court will find that defendant has knowingly and voluntarily waived his right to jury trial. In each of the cause numbers, I'm showing you the plea bargain page. Did you review that with your attorney? Did you understand them?
Yes.
According to the plea bargain agreement in each cause number, your punishment is to be assessed at 2 years in the prison. In cause number 2019 CR 9156, there's an affirmative finding of deadly weapon. The cases are to run concurrently and there are no applications. Did you understand that to be the plea?
Yes.
Defense?
Yes.
State?
Yes.
In each of the cause numbers, I'm showing you what's entitled waiver of appeal paragraph. Did you review that paragraph with your attorney? Did you understand it? And did you sign it in both places? Did you understand by signing that you're waiving your right to appeal? The only items that can be appealed are written pretrial motions that have been filed, heard, and ruled upon by the court. Did you understand?
Yes.
Counsel, have there been any such motions?
Only competency motions, Judge.
Right.
He was originally found incompetent and later restored.
All right. Then Mr. Fitzpatrick, in cause number 2019 CR 9156, how do you plead? Guilty, not guilty, or no contest? And in cause number 2019 CR 13278, how do you plead? Guilty, not guilty, or no contest? State any evidence to support the defendants, please.
Yes, state offer states is one and it's for the case. No objection in either case.
Mr. Fitzpatrick, in each of the cause numbers, I'm showing you what's entitled waiver and consent to stipulation of testimony and stipulations. Did you review those documents with your attorney? Did you understand them? And did you sign them in all the appropriate places? Again, did you understand you have a right to jury trial, a right for you or your attorney to cross-examine and confront any witnesses the state would call and the right to remain silent? Did you understand that in each of the cause numbers, the state would be proceeding by way of evidence through police statements, police reports, and statements, but most importantly, there will be no live testimony. Did you understand? And each of the stipulation of testimony and stipulations, and the court will accept the documents into evidence. After reviewing states exhibits 1 and attachments, the court will find there's sufficient evidence to find you guilty in each cause number. Are you proceeding with sentencing?
We are, Judge.
And cause number 2019 CR 9156. The court will sentence you to 2 years in the prison, give you credit for any time served. Did he have any inpatient treatment that was locked down?
He was in state hospital for some time, yes.
All right, I'll give him credit for any inpatient treatment at state hospital. And there's an affirmative finding of a deadly weapon. And it's run concurrent with 2019 CR 13278.
It's the court person for my client on the record. He has over 750 days in one case and over 950 days in another.
Okay. And in clause number 2019 CR 13278. The court will follow your agreement, find you guilty, sentence you to 2 years in the prison, give you credit for any time served. This is run concurrent with 2019 CR 9156. Give you credit for any inpatient treatment. Is there anything else from either side with regards to sentencing?
No, Your Honor.
And each of the cause numbers, I'm showing you what's entitled Trial Court Certification of Defendant's Rights to Appeal. Did you review that document with your attorney? Did you understand it? And did you sign it? All right, because this is plea bargain agreement, because I followed your plea bargain agreement, and because you waive your right to appeal, you do not have the court's permission to appeal in either case. Do you understand? And because these are felony convictions, you're not allowed to own or possess any weapons or ammunition. If you have a question over what a weapon or ammunition is, you'll need to speak to an attorney. Do you understand? All right, good luck to you. Thank you. Who's here on Raul Reyes?
I am Judge.
Yes, what is happening with Raul Reyes?
Request.
Oh, yeah.
I don't like with an offer.
Mr. Reyes, come forward.
But the state is appropriate, so I think that's where I'm currently at.
All right, so you have all the discovery?
I believe so, Judge.
All right, Ms. Ferguson, can I have a plea deadline date for this case in the new year, please?
What day?
19.
No, January 19th.
I won't be here in November, so possible, or I'm giving you the
When will you be back?
almost getting your marks.
Oh, so we need to put the plea deadline date in December. The world traveler. All right, December 19th is your plea deadline date. At that time, you need to let the court know whether or not you're accepting the plea. If you choose not to accept the plea, what would end up happening is the court will not consider any plea bargaining agreements without good cause. Otherwise, you have the plea open to the court. Do you understand? All right, thank you. They'll give you a reset form. Okay, so Jose Gonzalez.
Present, Judge.
Yes, what is happening with this?
President Judge, I've been conferring with the state, with Mr. Groomer in particular. So I know he's reached out to the family of the victim in this case, to see if they are open and working out for a resolution. But I have the defense of my discovery. We talked to my client about it. There was a plea offer. That's where we're at.
All right, Ms. Ferguson, can you give me a plea deadline date in December, please? All right, we're going to come back on December 16th. At that time, you need to let the court know whether or not you're accepting the agreement. After that date, the court will not consider any agreements without good cause. Otherwise, you have the plea open to the court. Do you understand? All right, thank you.
Sure.
All right, who's here on Armando Jimenez? Thank you. And who's the female in the box? Why is she here?
Joseph Stason was just in here, Judge.
All right, she's gonna have to go back because it's almost 2. So I'm gonna take this plea. So, court is calling 2022 CR 7155, State of Texas versus Armando Jimenez. Could I have parties announced for the record for the state
Marcus Sanders.
defense? And are you Mr. Why is this signed Armando Mitchell?
I think I was distracted when I was.
Okay.
With Peter having such.
All right, so this is the discovery acknowledgement. Counsel, have you received all the discovery in this case, and did you review it with your client?
Yes, Your Honor. We also wrote this morning a computer for any.
All right, the court will find that the state is in compliance with discovery. Mr. Jimenez, I'm showing you what's entitled application for community supervision. Did you review that with your attorney? Did you understand it? Next, I'm showing you what's entitled true bill of indictment. Did you review that with you? Did you understand it? Counsel, do you waive the reading of the proceeding on the indictment as presented?
Proceeding on count 1, waiving count 2, and the amendment paragraph.
Any objection?
No objection.
Mr. Jimenez, I'm showing you what's entitled court admonishments and defendants waivers and affidavit of admonitions. Did you review that document with your attorney? Did you understand it? Did you sign it in all the appropriate places? Did you understand you're charged with possession with intent to deliver a controlled substance, penalty group 1, 200 grams to 400 grams? The range of punishment for that offense is anywhere from 10 to 99 years or life in prison and up to a $10,000 fine. Did you understand? If you have a plea bargain agreement with the state, the court does not have to follow your plea bargain agreement. If for any reason the court doesn't follow your plea bargain agreement and gives you more than you bargained for, the fact that you're entered a plea will not be used against you, and you will be allowed to withdraw your plea. Did you understand? Did you understand you have a right to jury trial, a right for you or your attorney to cross-examine and confront any witnesses the state would call in, the right to remain silent? Did you understand by entering this plea bargain agreement, you were giving up those rights? Did you intend to give up those rights and enter into a plea in this case?
Yes.
Counsel, has your client been able to provide you with any defenses?
Yes, he has, Your Honor.
Do you believe he has a rational as well as a factual understanding of the charges against him?
I believe he does, Your Honor.
Do you believe he's currently competent and was legally sane at the time of the offense?
My opinion.
Mr. Jimenez, has anyone threatened you, coerced you, and placed you in fear to get you to enter this plea? Has anyone promised you anything other than the plea bargain agreement? Are you satisfied with the way you've been represented?
Yes, sir.
Are you a U.S. citizen? Court will find that defendant has knowingly and voluntarily waived his right to jury trial. Showing you the plea bargain page. Did you review that with your attorney? Did you understand it?
Yes, sir.
According to the plea bargain agreement, punishments be assessed at a cap of 15 years in the prison, and the state is opposing your application. Did you understand that to be the plea?
Yes, sir.
Defense?
Yes, Your Honor.
State?
Yes, sir.
Showing you the paragraph entitled waiver of appeal paragraph. Did you review that with your attorney? Did you understand it? Did you sign it in both places? Did you understand by signing that you're waiving your right to appeal? The only items that can be appealed are written pretrial motions that have been filed, heard, and ruled upon by the court. Did you understand? Counsel, are there any such motions?
No, Your Honor.
Then to the offense as charged in count 1, how do you plead? Guilty, not guilty, or no contest? State any evidence?
That state offer states exhibit 1 and attachments.
No objection.
Showing you what's entitled waiver and consent to stipulation of testimony and stipulations. Did you review that document with your attorney? Did you understand it? And did you sign it in all the appropriate places? Again, did you understand you have a right to jury trial, a right for you or your attorney to cross-examine and confront any witnesses the state would call in, the right to remain silent? Did you understand that today the state will be presenting evidence in the form of witnesses' statements, police reports, and laboratory reports, but most importantly, there will be no live testimony? Did you understand? Court will find that defendant has knowingly and voluntarily waived and consented to stipulation of testimony and stipulations. The court will accept you the same. The court is finding there's sufficient evidence to find you guilty, and the court is finding you guilty. Your PSI report will take place, well, your sentencing will take place on January 9th at 9 a.m. The court will base its ruling upon the PSI report and any other evidence that's presented on that day. And probation, I'll need a TAP evaluation as well. All right, thank you. All right, the person who's in the box, the female. What's her name?
Brianna Mitchell.
Should I see the file on Brianna Mitchell? All right. So on Brianna Mitchell, is this the companion with the case we just did? I mean, is this the companion with this person or it's a different person? All right, come down. Okay,
Your Honor, we do have a plea offer he's accepted. If you could, fit this into this week's schedule.
all right. Can we recall this for tomorrow? All right, we'll come back tomorrow. All right, thank you.
We're done with all of them?
You need a right. You need a right.
Come on, guys, let's go.
What's our work schedule gonna be for the next couple of days?
Jimenez, have a seat in the chair right now.
Hopefully we'll be starting at 11.
Tomorrow?
Yes.
Okay, and then Wednesday?
Wednesday is all day, I think. Is Wednesday all day?
Okay, perfect, thank you.
All right, and State, do you have your next witness? If you can have them and place them on the witness stand?
Yes, like.
Thank you. Yes. And we'll try to take our first break maybe at 3:15. Yeah. I'm telling you, the next phone call I have, I want it to be great news. I'm due for some great news, I think. Yeah.
How's your aunt?
She's doing okay, much better.
Well, then we won't talk about LSU. football.
Oh, you know what? They're still going to a bowl game, so it's okay. You know?
Hey, my team's going to the Cotton Bowl.
Well, rock on. Well, you know what? I tell you what,
First time ever. I mean, we're terrible normally.
Yeah. sometimes it's great because you don't want to go to someplace and be embarrassed, right?
Oh, no, my team's gonna get embarrassed.
Well, maybe not. Miracles do happen.
Tulane, and we're playing Southern California.
No, I mean, did
We're
you?
gonna get thrashed.
No,
We're gonna get thrashed.
don't put that in the universe.
I mean, they look
Right.
great the other day,
Yes.
All right, for the jury?
but they're playing against like high school teams.
All right, everyone, please be seated. And ladies and gentlemen, I know it's beginning to sound like a broken record, but I am a presiding judge this week. So I am receiving cases from all of the other felony courts. So you may see a lot of people coming through this door. Again, that has absolutely nothing to do with this case, but it's just cases that I'm getting from a lot of the other courts. All right, State, call your next witness.
They call the Officer Albert.
All right, could you raise your right hand for me? Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you give will be the truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God? All right, I'm gonna need you to speak up.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, you can lower your hand. And if you'll state your name for the record and spell it, please.
My name is Steve Albart, STEVE ALBART.
All right, state.
Officer Albert, what do you do for a living?
I'm a police officer with the Street Crimes Unit here on the department.
What is the street crimes unit?
It's a specialized unit within the department that goes after focused areas of crime that are occurring throughout the city and throughout the city limits.
And you are a certified police officer,
Yes, sir.
and you've had, I assume, how long have you been with SAPD?
This is my 8th year.
I assume you've had training with SAPD,
Yes, sir.
and when you are, I guess, working, are you in full uniform?
Yes, just this uniform that I wear.
And are you in a marked police car?
Yes.
Are you normally working alone, or do you work with somebody else?
On the current unit, I work with a assigned partner.
Let me direct your attention to February 2nd, 2018. 20 minutes before midnight. What happened?
That evening, I received a radio dispatch to go and assist other units that were responding to a shooting in progress. As I arrived, we kind of helped to assist with, like a perimeter to kind of help contain the events that were going on. We had heard that the suspects had possibly entered an apartment and close by, and so we kind of set up in front of that apartment complex, or in front of that apartment specifically, until these persons came out. So I remained there throughout that incident, and probably I couldn't tell you how long it lasted, but it lasted throughout the entire evening and into the morning hours. We had the SWAT team show up, and once they arrived, that's when occupants started surrendering and coming outside of the apartment. From there, I took custody of one of the individuals that was within the apartment and brought them over to kind of a safe area, as there were still other occupants coming out of the apartment complex. From there, that's when I
Sustained.
The location that you went to, that was the Cassiano home.
yes.
And when you got there, were you the first? Were there other police officers on the scene?
Yes, there were other officers already on the scene.
And so when you got there, what were you guys trying to do?
At that point, we received information that the suspects had gone into an apartment, and at that point, we treat that situation as a barricaded subject, where we set up around the apartment or the building and essentially start to call them out. And that's basically what we do, is waiting for someone to come out and surrender.
So when you got there, you became aware that a 14-year-old had been shot,
Yes,
and it was pretty dark out.
yes, it was nightfall.
And were other people around, or you crowd make sure? What happened?
Yeah, it was pretty chaotic upon arriving. Chaotic in the sense that there were still lots of people around, standing around. There were people kind of yelling in the direction of the apartment. And then there were mainly just spectators just kind of watching the police activity just within that short little area.
And I guess someone had spoken to a witness, and you were able to determine a suspect location.
Yes.
And how many officers do you think surrounded that location?
If I had to guess, it would probably be between 10, 15 officers.
Do you know if someone had tried to make contact with him during this time period? People in that apartment?
No, not that I recall.
But looking into that apartment, did it seem quiet?
Yes,
Like no one was there?
like as we looked at the apartment, I can't remember ever thinking if there were actually persons in the apartment throughout the evening. I don't remember if someone had mentioned they saw movement in one of the windows, but that was not something I recall, vividly.
But given the large police presence, no one could possibly miss you guys out.
Correct.
And you said at some point after SWAT showed up, they came out?
Yes, the occupants that were inside the apartment started to come out. In fact, they were coming out more than one by one, and it was kind of a little chaotic as persons started to come out because the SWAT officers were kind of yelling out commands for the individuals to come out with their hands up. And then that's where they were taken into custody by the SWAT vehicle or the Bearcat.
And when the defendant came out, did he make any statements to you that were not in response to any questions?
In my report, I stated that the suspect did admit to me without any questioning. He was just trying to protect his own in the same way that police protect their own. He admitted to having several firearms in the apartment.
Judge, I'm just gonna ask that you not read directly from his report.
All right. You're not allowed to read directly from your report. You are allowed to use it to refresh your memory.
Okay.
What firearm did he identify in the apartment?
An AR-15?
And any pistol?
Yes. There were 2 pistols.
And where did he say those pistols and the rifle were?
In the upstairs bathroom of the apartment.
And did he say anything about wearing a vest, a ballistic vest?
Yes, he stated that he put it on.
A past witness.
Defense?
When did he say he put the ballistics vest on?
He said after what had happened earlier in the evening.
And he told you where weapons were in the apartment?
That the weapons were located in the upstairs bathroom behind the toilet, I believe.
Do you know if that happened to be the case where they were located? Do you personally know?
I don't know. I didn't enter the apartment.
How many people exited that apartment? Do you know?
I'd be guessing if I told you between 8 and 10 people.
And they came out voluntarily?
Once the SWAT vehicle showed up and started to call on the apartment, individuals started to come out. They opened the door and they started to come out towards the vehicle.
And the interaction you have, Mr. Montez, was he polite to you? Was he courteous?
Yes, I mean, there wasn't any kind of aggressive nature that I recall from any of the persons that I was dealing with who were already in custody.
That's what.
See?
Well, there's a large group of police officers there when they're coming out.
Yes.
You said there was a SWAT vehicle. What was that?
The Bearcat, the SWAT Bearcat, it's a heavily armored vehicle that they had pulled up onto within, I'd say probably within 20, 30 feet from the front door of the apartment.
And it wasn't long after that when they finally came out.
Yes.
I passed it.
No further questions.
All right, is this witness excused or subject to recall?
Excuse.
All right, the rule has been invoked. What that means is you can't discuss your testimony with anyone. The only persons you're allowed to speak to are attorneys for the state and defense.
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. Step down. State, call your next witness.
They called Officer Casanova.
Let me take a seat here. Would you raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you give will be the truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, ma'am.
Or you can lower your hand if you could state your name for the record and spell it, please.
Steve Casanova, Steve, first name, last name is Casanova.
All right, state.
Officer Casanova, it's pretty clear, but what do you do for a living?
I'm a police officer for the San Antonio Police Department,
And how long have you been a police officer for the city of San Antonio?
going on 10 years.
And I assume as a police officer, you had extensive training.
Yes.
Just very briefly, what kind of training have you had?
I've gone to SWAT school. I've gone to rifle courses. I've taken several tactical courses for room clearing and setting up on perimeters for apprehending suspects. I've taken TACMED courses. So I've done quite a lot in the department since I've been on.
And you are a certified police officer?
Yes, sir.
Let me direct your attention to, I guess, shortly before February 3rd of 2018, in the late hours, close to midnight
Mhm.
of February the 2nd. Were you working at,
Yes,
and were you in a marked police vehicle?
yes,
And were you in full uniform, kind of like the way you are right now?
yes, sir.
And where were you assigned?
To the 23 side section of the shallow west side central.
And you know where the Castellanos are?
Yes.
And so what is your normal shift?
Normal shift at that time was I worked dog watch hours. Was in our area that we work is all the linking cords, it's Castellano cords. So tend to be very proactive in those areas because of the high crime area that we work in.
So earlier on in your shift, you have a call come out to the Castellanos.
Yes.
What happened?
We actually heard the gunshots come out first because we were about 2 minutes away down the street at a corner store. And then we started getting a bunch of calls for shots fired in the Castellanos. So since we already had heard the shots coming out, we started to make our way towards our vehicles and start hauling tail to that area because we knew it was going to be something serious because of the sound of the gunfire. You want me to continue going exactly what happened when we got there, or
How many shots did you hear?
anywhere between 15 to 20 shots?
And you said we, who do you mean by we?
The other officers that I was with, Officer Panna, Pollard, Officer Albert, there was a lot of us that when we leave roll call, we all go kind of do the same thing. We all go to the corner store, get what we need, hang out a little bit, and then all go to the courts together.
So you heard a bunch of 15 to 20 shots coming from the Castellanos?
Yes.
And so what did you guys all do?
We all left what we were going to buy and took off running to our patrol vehicles and started making our way towards that area.
Roughly how far away, how many blocks away do you think you were from Christopher Watt?
Maybe 6 to 8 blocks away.
Well, fair to say you probably got there within a couple minutes?
Oh, yes, yes. Yeah, it was inside 2 minutes exactly.
And so when you got there, were you able to park close by or?
Yes, we actually parked at, I think maybe one apartment over from the location where the child was at.
So when you guys got out of your police cars, could you smell anything?
Oh, yes, I can smell the gunpowder in the air. And it was because of the weather. The weather was very foggy. And typically when the weather is like that, the particles in the air tend to stick around a lot longer than normal. So right when I got off the vehicle, I instantly put it on the air, hey, step it up. I can smell rifle rounds, in the area.
As you and the other officers were sort of, I guess, kind of fan out, just kind of like search the area or?
Yeah, we started, I mean, we were kind of like blind out there as nobody was making any noise. It was completely quiet. So we started to like run around the area and kind of start figuring out like something happened out here. And maybe within like 45 seconds, that's when people started coming out of apartments and letting us know like, hey, their apartment was hit. There was even one room where there was like a bunch of children asleep and the rounds had literally were like a foot above where all those kids were sleeping. So we thought that was it until we heard the screaming from the apartment across where the child was at.
So you actually saw an apartment with bullet holes?
Yes.
So initially you were hopeful that no one had been shot
Yes.
until you got summoned to 203 St. Christopher.
Yes, sir.
And what was that like when you got there?
It was and it was hard to, it's hard to like really put words in for it, but it was sad. You know, I had a father's screaming and crying, children that were inside an apartment that didn't know what was going on. And then we instantly realized that we had a young boy shot on the floor. We initially, both my partners had initially tried to see what they could do for the child. But as officers, you got to kind of make those tough decisions on if you're able to do something right then and there. And at that moment, it was kind of like we already knew that, hey, there's nothing much that we can do right now other than we need to start figuring out who did this and quick. So I believe I stopped what I was doing and tried to get his brothers and sisters away from where he was at so they wouldn't see that. And then I walked over to the father and trying to get as much information as I can from him, which obviously he didn't know much because they're inside an apartment. And, you know, seeing his emotions, you know, he was crying it with me.
No objection there.
Sustained.
So it was a lot.
Well, excuse me. I'm sorry. I sustained the objection. So the state will ask you another
Oh, yes,
question.
ma'am.
So what was the boy's father like?
He was hysterical. I mean, it was, you know, he realized he just lost his son. So emotions were very high.
And you did the best try to get some information from that?
Yes, yes.
And what happened after you got some information?
After that, you know, it was, you had to turn, you know, put your emotions aside and start figuring out what we need to do. So I instantly started yelling at officers to start just asking anybody questions. If they saw anything, if they heard anything, where did they hear the gunshots coming from? Because we had a job to do. I knew that they were close by because we were there within 2 minutes. Luckily for me, a young female had ran up to me and she kind of knew something and didn't want to tell me. So I was able to kind of like tell her like, hey, a little boy just died. Like you need to have a heart here and let us know what happened. And she's the one that told me that, hey, we were with these guys.
Sustained.
You spoke to a female?
Yes,
And after you spoke to the female, were you able to identify a location?
yes, yes.
When you talked to that female, what was she like?
She was just calm. I don't think she understood the seriousness of what had just occurred. She didn't understand that what happened after the shots were fired, that someone was shot and killed.
And so what was her demeanor like after you told her that a boy had shot?
It kind of hit her. Like she you can see that she felt bad. And so that's the reason why she told us exactly where the suspects had ran into.
And that would be 928 Angela Walk.
Yes.
Once you had a location where the suspects had ran into, what happened?
I immediately started having officers set up a quadrant. We covered all 4 corners of the apartment. We weren't 100% sure if maybe they went out through the back. You know, we none of us could bet like 100% that, hey, they're in there, but we just knew that this is the last location that we were told that they were at. So we instantly just surrounded the building and just basically held it down until we can get further information at that point.
How long do you think you were out there?
We were out there for at least 7-8 hours.
Were you there when SWAT finally arrived?
Yes.
And did they bring in their vehicle, their SWAT vehicle?
Yes, sir.
Then how much longer after that before they finally came out? You remember?
Oh, man. I couldn't tell you because they came in different waves, but I do know that once they were approaching the location, it wasn't long. I don't even think they got halfway and then they came out and surrendered after that. So I would say within the hour of them actually like setting up, getting ready to breach the apartment that they had gave up.
So after this female gave you this location of 928 Angela Walk, how did you and the other officers set yourself up, try to make sure that no one left that address?
So we just basically covered all four corners. So I was to the left of the location and had like a catty cornered view on the apartment. It's a tough place because everything is literally squared off, but there's so many open spaces. We knew there was rifles, we knew there was handguns involved, so we had to still set ourselves up safely while still trying to maintain the integrity of keeping the location intact. So it was tough, but we were all pretty much like a building away from the building that they were inside, to keep a safe distance, but still be able to keep an eye on the front door and the rear door of the location.
And you made sure no one was going in?
Yeah, nobody was going in, nobody was going out. We already had shut down the entire block down. Like there was nobody walking in or out.
And even though they did not come out in the beginning, if they had come out, you would have taken them into custody.
Oh, yes, yes.
Best witness?
Defense?
You're on, how long have you been on patrol?
Going on 10 years, sir.
10 years, okay, and you, at the time of this, back in 2018, you were on Central Patrol or?
Yes, sir.
So you're familiar with the Casanova courts?
Very familiar, yes, sir.
And you said on direct that you would get together with other officers in your unit, go to a convenience store, and then you guys would go down to the courts.
Yes, sir.
Okay, why is that?
Because it takes up the majority of our entire section.
Just handling.
Handling all types of calls. We handle shootings all the time in those areas, cuttings in those areas, family violence in those areas. It's a very high crime area. So we tend to show our force out there so that way maybe we can kind of keep down some of the craziness, especially like on weekends.
So if you're visible to the people that are around there, the hopes is that people won't.
Yeah, we're not getting those calls at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning for aggravated robberies or shootings, so, that's the hope, it doesn't go like that all the time.
And you said that you'd heard 15 to 20 rifle rounds fired, is that what you're?
Yeah, about, because we were inside the store, but we could hear the shots coming out from the location because it wasn't far. We're right off of Zasamora on 90 at the 7-Eleven, so it's not far from the Casianos.
And that's all the questions I have. Thank you, officer.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions? State?
No further questions.
All right, the rule has been invoked. What that means is you can't discuss your testimony with anyone. The only persons you're allowed to speak to are attorneys for the state of the defense. All right, thank you.
Mhm.
State, call your next witness.
They called John Rogers.
Can you raise your right hand for me? Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you give will be the truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, sir.
All right, you can have a seat, and if you'll state for your name for the record and Please keep your voice up so that everyone can hear.
Officer John Rogers.
Right, state.
Officer, you are a police officer,
Yes, sir.
and who do you work for?
The San Antonio Police Department,
And how long have you worked for the San Antonio Police Department?
just over 6 years.
Are you certified police officer?
Yes, sir.
And you've had training as a police officer?
Yes, sir.
Now, where are you normally assigned?
Currently, I'm assigned to Central Patrol Daylight,
And back in 2018, what was your assignment?
Central Patrol Dog Watch overnight shift,
So roughly, what kind of hours are dog watch?
10:30 PM to 6:30 AM.
Now, when you're working your dog watch shift, are you in full uniform
Yes, sir.
and in a marked police car?
Yes, sir.
Are you by yourself or are you with other people?
Normally, I'm by myself.
Let me direct your attention, I guess, to the February 2nd of 2018, February 3rd, around midnight, just before midnight. Were you dispatched out to a call?
Yes, sir. I believe I was.
And what happened?
I believe it was for a shooting in progress.
And where was that?
I don't recall the exact address. I could reference my report.
You have it in front of you?
I have it here. Yes, sir. The address of my report is 203 St. Christopher Walk.
Castellanos.
Yes, sir.
So, did you have someone with you?
Yes, sir. I had a civilian rider at the time.
So, you got dispatched to a shooting, and did you go to to the Castellanos?
Yes, sir.
And so if you have a civilian rider, what do you do with your civilian rider?
So when we went, the civilian basically followed me around until she was instructed by a sergeant to go back to the patrol vehicle, and then she remained in the patrol vehicle until we moved her.
Did you utilize a shield?
Yes, sir. When I arrived, where I placed my patrol vehicle, at the time of my arrival, I was unaware that it was directly in front of the suspect apartment. So when she was given instruction to go back to the patrol vehicle, she was sitting directly in front of the suspect vehicle or the suspect apartment. So once we realized we had a civilian in that position, we utilized a shield and a team to get her out of the vehicle and get her to a safer location.
Up to that point, you didn't know where they were holed up.
Correct.
And did you and the other officers find shell cases?
Yes, sir.
Did you tell the shell casings were fresh?
Yes, sir.
They weren't dirty.
No, sir, they weren't dirty.
I guess when shell cases are out there, I can tell when people step on them, or when not, they're just kind of loose.
Yes, sir.
What could you tell about these shell cases?
I could tell they hadn't been stepped on. They were sitting kind of on the top of the ground, appeared clean, fresh.
In front of the suspect?
Yes, sir.
And did you deploy a rifle?
Yes, sir.
And why did you do that?
Because with my training and experience, I identified the shell casings to be that of a rifle round. So I deployed my rifle to be able to create distance and have an equivalent weapon for reactionary purposes if needed.
And so once you had a location, how many officers do you think were out there?
It was quite a few. In my specific location, there was at least 4 to 5 of us. 4 to 5, yes.
Officer Anna, Officer Pollard, Officer Casanova. Right?
Yes, sir.
There were a bunch of officers.
There were several officers, yes, sir.
And so I guess you formed a ring around that apartment.
Yes, sir. We set up a perimeter.
And how long do you think before SWAT arrived?
At a minimum of 8 hours.
Were you aware if attempts were made to contact people in the apartment?
Yes, sir. Communication was attempted. It wasn't by me, but it was attempted on scene.
And that was to no effect.
Not that I could see.
So when SWAT was called out, you also call out for a negotiator?
Yes, sir. Negotiators had arrived on scene prior to SWAT.
Now, the apartment that you were looking at, 928 Angela Walk, did it appear dark?
Yes, sir.
Did you see anything in there?
Do I have to object to leading, Judge?
Sustained.
What was that apartment like?
It was dark. Windows were covered. Remained that way all night.
What movement, if any, did you see that night?
None from the apartment.
Now, would it be fair to say, given the large police presence, no one could miss all you guys out?
I would say that's fair to say.
And if people were trying to walk through the area, what would you guys have done?
We had two perimeters. We had an inner perimeter and an outer perimeter. So if somebody would have tried walking through the area, they would have been stopped at the outer perimeter. And then most definitely would have been stopped on the inner perimeter as well.
After some attempts were made to contact them and then SWAT arrived, what happened?
Once SWAT arrived, so I was on the inner perimeter watching the front door. So I backed off just slightly, created some distance. To my recollection, SWAT drove the armored car, which we call the Bear, in front of the apartment. I remember seeing SWAT dismount the Bear and stage behind it. So the Bear was between them and the suspect apartment. And I remember seeing the turret, which is on top of the armored vehicle, open. And at that point, the front door opened and SWAT began calling individuals out of the apartment.
So all night, what movement did you see in that apartment?
Absolutely none.
And then finally, when SWAT shows up with their big armored vehicle, what happens?
The door opened and individuals came out and they were called out.
And then the people who came out, they were taken into custody.
Yes, sir.
And how long did you stay out there?
I stayed out there until, I believe until we released the scene, or until I was instructed to go ahead and head in.
Past witness?
Defense.
Officer, you said you were parked in front of, I guess, 928 Angela Walk.
Presumably the suspect address. I don't recall that address offhand.
And so, you said you had to use a shield, or you deployed a shield,
Yes, sir.
and that's for defensive purposes.
Yes, sir. When we did deploy it, that was the intent.
And so, were you also wearing a bulletproof vest,
Yes, sir.
and that's for defensive purposes?
Yes, sir.
That's something standard issue that you always wear.
That night I was wearing, so I wear my normal bulletproof vest, which would normally stop handgun rounds. That night, up until that point, the department had not issued rifle rated vests. I had my own personal one, based on observing rifle rounds. I also utilized that.
And you said that you found evidence in front of the suspect apartment. Is that right?
I recall seeing the shell casings. Yes, sir.
Okay. And as a part of the patrol, are you instructed to pick up evidence?
No, sir.
Okay.
Not
And-
always.
And you noted that the evidence was in the dirt, right?
I recall it on the ground. Yes, sir.
And you said it wasn't stepped on, didn't appear dirty.
Didn't appear that way from,
And so when you find this evidence, do you put evidence markers on
I would say that's situational.
it? Okay. Did you do that in this particular instance?
No,
And so whatever evidence was there was left to be found by CSI later.
yes, sir. It was left until we could secure the scene properly.
And when you secured the scene, were y'all are allowing other non-officers to enter that perimeter?
No, sir.
Okay, so y'all secured it by not allowing other people in, right?
Correct.
And so y'all are maintaining the integrity of that crime scene, right?
Correct.
And so it's safe to say that whatever evidence was there, CSI labeled it after the incident was over, right?
Presumably, that would be CSI's job.
And so you didn't make a report in regards to what all evidence you witnessed, correct?
In my report, I specifically stated,
Not reading it, if you could just
Okay.
use it to refresh your memory.
I did reference rifle round shell casings being found on the ground.
And you didn't note how many in your report, correct?
No,
And you didn't note if you found any pistol casing?
no, I don't recall.
It just, once you saw some rounds, you became alerted, right?
Yes, sir.
Pass the witness.
State.
No further questions.
All right, is this witness excused or subject to recall?
Excuse Judge.
All right, the rule has been invoked. What that means is you can't discuss your testimony with anyone. The only persons you're allowed to speak to are attorneys for the state or the defense. All right,
Thank you, Your
thank
Honor.
you. State, call your next witness.
They called Juan Hernandez.
Right here. Yeah. Can you raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you give will be the truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
All right, you can lower your hand. Please make sure you keep your voice up. If you could state your name for the record and spell it, please.
Yes, Juan Hernandez, JUANHERNANDEZ.
All right, state.
You're Officer Juan Hernandez,
Yes, sir.
and obviously, what do you do for a living?
I'm a police officer with the city of San Antonio,
How long have you been a police officer for the city of San Antonio?
going on 11 years.
And you are a certified police officer,
I am.
and you've had training as a police officer?
Yes, sir.
Just real briefly, your training as a police officer?
Tactics, we go over different scenarios in the academy, driving, firearms training, laws, penal code, courts, criminal procedures.
And so when you're working, you're in a marked police car
I am.
and in full uniform.
Yes, sir.
I guess that would be similar to the uniform that you're wearing.
Yes, sir.
And so on February 2nd of 2018, close to midnight of February 3rd, 2018, were you working that night?
I was.
And where were you assigned?
I was assigned to Central Patrol Tango Shift.
Were you working essentially what you guys call dog watch?
It covers part of Dog Watch and part of the B shift. So we handle pretty much the gap.
And so you normally work alone or you work with other people?
It depends. On that evening, I was doubled up with another officer,
Who was that other officer?
Albert Ramos.
And when you were waiting yesterday, would you be the one that was out in the hallway and they testified at the last witness session?
On Friday, yes, sir.
Or Friday, I'm sorry. And so you were working with Officer Ramos?
Yes, sir.
And so when you were working with Officer Ramos close to midnight, what happened?
So we were assigned as directed patrol, essentially what the duties of working directed patrol is to target hot spots, high crime areas, not necessarily handle calls that come in, but to do our own on-site activity. And on that evening, we assigned ourselves to the shooting in progress when it came out.
When you say you assigned yourself, how do you do that?
We asked the dispatcher to assign us.
So being assigned to the shooting, what does that mean that you're supposed to do?
So if I remember correctly, when we asked to be assigned to the call, we were no longer running code. We weren't running with lights and sirens because there was officers on scene already. So it didn't require us to be running with the lights and sirens on. So when we got assigned to the call, we were essentially on the perimeter of the location of the dispatch location, and we were looking for a possible suspect or suspects.
When you say looking, what were you driving?
We were in a marked patrol car.
So you're looking around trying to find a shooter.
Yes, sir.
And so as you're driving around, what happened?
So we were driving, I can't remember what direction or in what certain area, but eventually we got flagged down by a gentleman in a small car.
Right near the Casanova courts.
Correct.
And this person that flagged you down, what happened?
He flagged us down. He said, if I remember correctly, that he needed help.
All right, that will be sustained.
Person that you talked to, was he in a vehicle? Was he in a vehicle?
Yes, he was.
And how did he flag you down?
He stopped right next to us. We were at an intersection. He stopped right next to us and basically stuck his arm out the window and to try to get he waved it, trying to get our attention.
And what was his demeanor like when he was trying to get your attention?
He was worried. He was, we couldn't really understand. I was driving the vehicle, the patrol car. I couldn't really understand what he was saying. So I circled back around and stopped behind him to get more information.
And so while he was, I guess we should confused and worried,
Yes, sir.
what happened?
We both, Officer Ramos and I both got out of the patrol vehicle. The driver got out of the vehicle and said that,
Sustained.
Said confused and worried. He almost seemed like he was in shock.
correct.
While he was in shock, what did he say?
Object hearsay, Judge.
That'll be overruled.
What did he say?
He said that his friend needed help and that he had gotten busted up.
And that would be Margarito Vito,
Yes, sir.
60, about 60.
Yes, sir.
That'll be sustained.
And so after Margarito Vito told you that his friend had been busted up, what'd you do?
We were still not sure exactly what happened to him. I remember Officer Ramos was doing most of the communicating. I was trying to see what I was looking around the car to see what he was talking about. Eventually, Margarito said that he believes his.
All right, that'll be sustained.
Was he still under sort of a shock state when he was making this comment?
Object to leading.
That'll be sustained.
What was his demeanor like when he was made this comment?
He was worried.
Earlier, you had said shock. Was he still shocked?
He was trying to communicate with us, but it seemed like he didn't know what to say to explain to us what had happened to his friend.
And what had happened to his friend?
Object to hearsay.
That'll be overruled.
He had mentioned that his friend had gotten busted up.
No problem.
He had told you his friend had got busted up.
Yes, sir. He's mentioned that his friend had gotten busted up. We were still trying to determine what that actually meant. And eventually he said that he believes his friend got shot by a,
All right, that'll be overruled.
You can answer.
eventually he said that he believed his friend had gotten shot.
Now, up until this point, were you aware of anyone being shot in that car?
No, sir.
And so when he told you, you thought his friend had been shot, what did you do?
We continued our investigation there with the driver and the passenger. The passenger had gotten out of the vehicle, was stumbling around close to the vehicle along the sidewalk. We noticed that there was what looked like a bullet hole in the back windshield. And that led to us checking on the passenger and in his the passenger seat. We saw what, like I mentioned, what appeared to be a bullet hole in the back window. So we checked the headrest. It was dark, so we couldn't really see any blood or anything.
Sustained.
What did you notice about the headrest?
There was a hole in it.
And noticing a hole through the windshield, rear windshield, or rear glass, and a hole in the headrest, the passenger seat. What did you do?
We came to the conclusion that there was a bullet hole in the back window that went through the back window, through the headrest, and possibly struck the passenger.
That would be Benito Gallegos.
Yes, sir.
And when he was struck, you said earlier, you said he stumbled out. Can you explain that?
Yes, sir. The passenger got out of the vehicle on his own, but was stumbling. I did not contact him. I did not speak to him. Officer Ramos did. But just on the way he was standing, he was unsteady. He was trying to stand still, but was unable to.
Did he try to stand still?
He was trying to stand up straight, and it just seemed like he was struggling. So Officer Ramos asked him to sit down.
And did he sit down?
I believe he did.
And then what happened?
We requested EMS to make our location.
And said Benito Gallegos had sat down. Did he lie down eventually? You sat down? What happened?
I don't remember if he was lying down or if he just sat down. I remember Officer Ramos did ask him to sit down. I just don't remember if he was eventually lied down.
And so you had realized that Mr. Gallegos had been shot.
That's what we concluded to, yes.
And so what did you do?
We notified the dispatcher, and at that point, it was just a matter of waiting for EMS to make our location.
And then when EMS arrived, what did they do?
I believe they placed the passenger on the stretcher, and I can't remember how much longer it was until they transported him.
You said EMS transported. Well, before they transported, did they work on it?
I don't remember.
Now, this car that you noticed the bullet hole through the back, would you can essentially try to protect this sort of crime.
Yes, sir. At that point, it was considered a crime scene, and we had to secure it.
Until an evidence comes.
Yes, sir.
And were you there later when Raul Reyes showed up, or
I was not there. No, sir.
why were you relieved by someone?
We were relieved, yes, sir, by an officer.
So at some point, there was always an officer watching that car until it was.
Yes, sir.
Now, once the driver told you that friend had been shot, you noticed, the signs that he had been shot. Did you any during this time period? Did you look at the vehicle?
We did glance inside the vehicle. We did not search the vehicle. We just looked inside. It was not a complete search. We weren't moving items or moving stuff out of the way.
But from where you were and looking in, could you see any weapons or anything like that?
No, sir.
And the driver, Margarito Vito, you can see if he had any guns or bladed instruments or anything like that.
No, sir.
What about the 69-year-old man sitting on the ground or lying on the ground, Benito Gallegos? Did he have any weapons?
No, sir.
If I may approach.
Yes.
Show you what the Martha States Exhibit number 337, that's already been admitted into evidence. Do you recognize it?
Yes, sir.
And what is it?
It's a CD, a disc.
Of
My Coban.
the camera that's in your car.
Correct.
And it does fairly and accurately represent the camera in your car.
Yes.
I may publish it to the jury at this time.
All right. And has 337 previously been admitted?
It has been through the last witness or from Friday.
All right. Yes, you may publish.
Officer, what was the weather like that day?
It was cold and rainy.
If you recall what part of town you were on?
We were the west side of town.
That'd be an ambulance in front of you.
Yes, sir.
You know if that was heading toward the Castellanos.
I'm not sure.
Officer, what were you doing when you were looking around the vehicle?
I was looking for more evidence, blood, any other gunshot holes.
And where's the passenger Benito Gallegos?
He's over by, on the sidewalk.
Initially, when you had made the stop, did you notice the bullet through the glass, the defect in the window?
No,
But then afterwards, you see how it aligns with the rear headrest,
And
Correct.
object leading.
passenger headrest.
All right, that'll be overruled. You can answer the question.
yes, sir.
And do you recall how far away you are from the Castellanos at this point?
Believe the Castellanos are the buildings on the left side of the street.
And you know what street you're on right now?
That's South Hamilton.
In terms of station 0406, these brightly colored tops, are they the Castellanos?
Yes, sir. If that's South Hamilton, running up and down, then yes, the Castellanos are on the left side. Yes, sir.
Well, that would give South Hamilton.
Yes, sir.
So roughly, how many blocks away were you away from the shooting?
I'm not sure where the actual shooting happened, in relation to where we got flagged down here.
But you're right there off on the Castellanos.
Yes, sir.
At this particular point, are you waiting for EMS to arrive?
Yes, sir.
When Mr. Gallegos was on the ground, were you able to see his injury?
I did not see the actual injury, no, sir.
Were you able to see any blood in the car?
I don't recall.
But you did go on the radio, and what did you put out on the radio?
I updated our location and requested EMS.
So in a few minutes, the ambulance is gonna leave,
Yes, sir.
and even though the ambulance leaves, where do you guys stay behind?
Yes, sir. We continue to secure the crime scene.
Which is to be,
Yes, sir.
make sure that no one gets into it.
Correct.
Now, initially, when you had made the stop, had you noticed the defect in the window?
No, sir.
It was only afterwards that you saw it.
Correct.
So do other officers show up?
Yes, sir.
And why is that?
To assist with scene security.
Make sure that no one messes with the car.
Correct.
And this video continues to run, right?
Yes, sir.
As you wait around for CSI to eventually show up.
Correct.
I pass witness.
All right, state. I'm sorry, defense.
Thank you, Judge.
You're welcome.
It's Officer Hernandez.
Yes, sir.
Okay, how long you been with SAPD?
Going on 11 years.
And you were working Central Tango shift.
At that time, yes.
And are you familiar with the Casanova courts?
Somewhat, yes.
Somewhat. Would you agree with me? It's a high crime area.
Yes, sir.
Okay, a lot of shootings, a lot of calls for service for assaults, robberies, things like that.
Yes, sir.
And the state briefly touched on the fact that you attended the academy and you learned various things at the academy before you become a police officer, right?
Correct.
One of those things is report writing.
Yes, sir.
And they teach you at the academy, the reason you write reports is to help refresh your memory if you ever have to testify again down the road, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, especially in cases where, 5 years have elapsed since the day of the alleged offense, right?
Yes, sir.
Did you write a report in relation to this case?
I did not.
Why is that? Why is that?
Typically, when we're working directed patrol, when we're in a two-man unit, one officer will, for example, when we make arrests, one officer will write the report and the other one will either transport the prisoner into the magistrate's office or do another task, but it's pretty common that only one officer, when doubled up, writes the report.
Okay, and that's even in the case when there's a shooting involved?
Not necessarily.
So you didn't write a report in relation to this case,
No, sir.
but you have a paper up there, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And that's Officer Ramos's report?
Correct.
Okay, so you've been reviewing his report in anticipation of your testimony today.
Yes, sir.
So what he wrote down is his recollection of the events, not necessarily yours, right?
Well, we worked on it together, so part of it is mine. Yes, sir.
Okay, but you don't have an independent recollection of what any of the individuals told you, but since it's been 5 years, you're going off of what Officer Ramos wrote that night.
No, sir.
You had a lengthy conversation with Margarito Vigil after Mr. Gallegos was put in the back of the EMS. Did you see that on video?
Yes, sir.
You don't have an independent recollection as to what any of that conversation was, right?
No, sir.
Because you didn't write a report.
Correct.
And based upon your investigation, you don't know how Benito Gallegos got shot.
No, sir.
You don't know where,
No, sir.
you don't know when.
Happened that night. I don't know exactly the time.
You don't know by who.
No, sir.
That's what it's.
State,
You do remember them him telling you that it's his uncle or the pastor had been shot.
Yes, sir.
And so, and you do remember him telling you that someone with rifles had busted him up.
Correct.
And you remember that independent.
Yes, sir.
Past.
How many arrests have you made in a period of 5 years?
I can't even give you a number.
Over 1,000,
No, sir.
500?
I don't know.
Ballpark, humor me, 250?
I can't say.
How many people have you made contact with in the 5 years since this incident? When you
Several.
work on the central substation?
Several.
Several?
Yes, sir.
So like 5?
No, more than that.
Okay. So you have an independent recollection as to what he told you and not based upon what Officer Ramos wrote in his report.
Yes, sir.
I'm passing this.
No further questions?
all right, is this witness excused or subject for recall?
Excuse me.
Excuse.
All right, the rule has been invoked. What that means is you can't discuss your testimony with anyone. The only persons you're allowed to speak to are attorneys for the state of the defense. Do you understand?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, thank you. You can step down. All right, does anyone need a short break? All right, we're going to do a short break. We're going to come back at 3:45. So remember, you've heard some evidence in this case. You're not allowed to deliberate. Everything that you need to know about this case will come from inside the courtroom. You're not allowed to do any research. Make sure your badges are visible. And if you see anything or hear anything about this case, ignore it. Does everyone understand? All right, everyone, please rise for the jurors. And everyone will be back at 3:45.
So.
Yeah, see,
Should have said it.
and that's not gonna be that way. But you know how it is, once you send out the general email, watch, this quarter is gonna be made up or brand new.
Yeah.
Oh, State, who's your next witness?
That was the bias.
All right, you want to go ahead and get him?
All rise for the jury.
All right, everyone, please be seated. State, call your next witness.
We'll call it, that was the bias.
All right, if you have a seat here, please. Can you raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony here will be the truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God? I do. All right, you can lower your hand. Just make sure you keep your voice up. If you could state your name for the record, please, and spell it.
Della Tobias, DELLA TOBIAS.
All right, state.
And- what do you do for a living?
I'm a crime scene investigator.
What is a crime scene investigator?
We process the crime scenes that SAPD gets called to.
And what kind of training have you had to process crime scenes?
I went through the police academy and we had, I believe it was maybe 5 or 6 months of classroom training and then another 2 months of ride along on the job training. And it requires a bachelor's degree in criminal justice.
How long have you been a crime scene investigator?
14 years, 14 and a half.
Good ballpark number of crime scenes you've been to? A lot.
It varies from day to day. I honestly haven't, I can't. Maybe on a weekly basis, it could be between 10 and 20, but it varies quite a bit.
Now, when you respond to a crime scene, are you in that uniform that you're wearing now?
Yes,
And are you given a San Antonio vehicle to drive?
yes.
How is the vehicle marked?
It says crime scene unit. It looks similar to a patrol car, but it says crime scene unit.
And were you working February the 3rd of 2018?
Yes,
And what would be your normal shift on that?
I believe it was 6:15 a.m. to 2:15 p.m.
And around noon of that day, were you dispatched to downtown?
My sergeant actually asked me to go downtown to SAPD headquarters,
And what were you asked to do at SAPD headquarters?
to collect clothing from an individual.
And what clothing were you told to collect from?
From who?
Right.
From, I was told his name was Richard Montes.
And in addition to collecting clothes, what else did you do?
I photographed him and then I handed him a Tyvek suit, which is a one-piece white suit. And I collected the clothing that he was wearing. I wrapped it individually. I transported it to our office downtown, marked it, packaged it, and then I put it in our property room.
All right, Mayor Coach.
Yes.
At my request, did you bring whatever top he was wearing?
Yes,
And you have it with you?
yes, I do.
I'm gonna mark this as case exhibit 410. How do you recognize state exhibit number 410?
When I package it, I put a red evidence tape and I mark it with my initials.
And you do that to secure the bag?
Yes,
And when you're done with it, what do you do with it?
I take it over to our SAPD property room at 401 and I place it into a locker.
It's kept in a secure location
Yes, it is.
with limited access.
Yes,
And so you brought this with you today
yes, I did.
from the property room?
Yes, where we deposited is at 401 South Frio, which is, we place it there on a daily basis. And then once a day, our property room personnel goes, and opens up the lockers and then they store it at their storage facility.
So these would be the clothes that you've collected,
Yes,
and you recognize the writing and the fact that you sealed it?
yes, I seal it with clear tape. I put the label on it and then I put the red label showing that when I seal it, and that's the last time I see it.
And then you can see at some points, the crime lab opened it, and whenever they're done with it, they reseal it.
Yes,
In addition to collecting state's exhibit 410, did you take pictures of the defendant?
yes, I did.
Let me show you what's been previously marked as state's exhibit number 389 through 395.
Okay,
Do you recognize these pictures?
yes, I do.
Now, are these pictures that you took of the defendant
Yes,
on that day?
yes, it is.
And do they fairly and accurately represent him?
Yes, I do.
This time I will tender with the mark of state's exhibit number 410. As well as state's exhibit number 389 through 395 to defense counsel and offer them into evidence at this time.
No objection.
All right, states exhibit number 410 and 389 through 395 are admitted without objection.
Quickly, Judge, if I can show this to the jury.
Yes.
This is how the defendant was, what he was wearing that day.
Yes,
And you collected the shirts that he was carrying.
yes, I did.
When you collect someone's clothes, do you give them any instructions?
I supply them with the Tyvek suit. I don't know what you mean by instructions.
Do you just have them take off whatever it is that you're looking for? Like if you're looking for a shirt or something, is there someone that gives them the instruction or do you give them the instruction?
I don't recall if that particular day, I'm usually, there's an officer there with me as well. And I believe I tell them, this is the suit that I need you to put on when you remove your clothing. This is the clothes, what you'll be wearing.
And then you give them like this white jumpsuit to wear.
Yes,
I pass witness.
Defense,
No questions, Judge.
is this witness excused or subject to recall?
Excuse me.
Excused.
All right. Just one moment. If I could have parties approach.
Yes. Mhm.
And jurors, just give us a moment because Brenna has to sign in things.
I'm sorry. Oh, okay. So I'm leaving this. Okay, then.
All right, and is he somebody to recall or no?
Yeah.
All right, excuse me, officer. The rule has been invoked. What that means is you can't discuss your testimony with anyone. The only persons you're allowed to speak to are attorneys for the state of the defense. All right, thank you. All right, state your next witness.
It's gonna call Mr. Shaw.
Okay. Can you raise your right hand for me, please? You solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you give will be the truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
All right, you can lower your hand. Just make sure you keep your voice up, and if you could state your name for the record, please, and spell it.
My name is Christina Vachon. It's spelled Crystina. The last name is Vachon.
All right, state.
Mr. Shaw, what do you do for a living?
I am currently the quality assurance manager at the Bexar County Criminal Investigation Laboratory. I've been in that position for about 3 years, and for 15 years before that, I was in the trace evidence section of the laboratory as a forensic scientist. And I am still currently the technical leader for gunshot residue testing.
Okay, let's start with quality assurance management. What is that?
I oversee our accreditation program in the lab, and I deal with any quality issues that come up on a daily basis. I'm also the safety officer. I communicate with the Texas Forensic Science Commission on behalf of the lab. So I wear a lot of hats as a quality assurance manager.
And you said that you used to work in the trace evidence section?
Correct.
And what would you do there?
In the trace evidence section, I would examine a lot of different types of evidence. As I said before, primer gunshot residue comprised most of our casework, but I also did testing such as hair and fiber analysis, paint analysis, footwear and tire track examination. So I did a lot of things in that section as well.
And how long were you in the trace evidence section?
15 years.
And can you briefly tell the jury about your educational background?
I have a bachelor's degree in biochemistry and a master's degree with a concentration in forensic science.
And how many times have you testified before?
I think somewhere around 230.
And typically, what is the subject that you testify about?
Generally, it's gunshot residue.
What is gunshot residue?
I have a visual aid if I may use it. This is just a plastic model of a round of ammunition. And what happens whenever a gun is fired is that the pull of the trigger will release the firing pin of the weapon, and that will strike the primer cap, which is the silver area you see on my model. And this primer cap contains shock sensitive chemicals. So when it receives that strike from the firing pin, there will be an explosion in the primer cap, which blows through into the cartridge case area here. The cartridge case contains gunpowder, and that will ignite, burn very quickly. And the gases inside the cartridge case expand. And those expanding gases are actually what push the bullet out of the cartridge case and down the barrel. So what I look for whenever I'm doing gunshot residue testing are the components of the primer cap. And it contains the metals lead, barium, and antimony. And they will actually evaporate in the explosion and condense back together to form particles. And the particles have a very specific shape and size that I can look for when I do my testing. And those particles will be expelled from any open areas of the gun and land on surfaces around the gun when it's been fired.
So when an evidence tech is in the field, and they have a gunshot residue kit, what kind of kit is it? What's in the kit?
I have an example of a sampling device if you'd like me to show the jury.
Please.
This is what a gunshot residue sampling device looks like. It's just a clear plastic vial. It has a label on it. And usually these are labeled in the kit and they'll say right hand and left hand. And you can see this is an orange cap that has a sampling device that is, it's just a round disc that has a post on it that holds it into the cap. And the way this is used is it's just removed from the vial and it's dabbed along the hands. Or we can even use it to sample items of clothing or inanimate objects such as vehicles and things like that. So then the cap is just placed back in the vial. Usually 2 of these come in a kit, so they'll just be packaged up and then sent to the lab for analysis.
Can you explain when you would typically dab a hand versus checking clothes in PSI?
Hands, because people are moving all of the time and using their hands in their daily activities, gunshot residue tends to fall off of the hands because it doesn't form any sort of attachment. So if the hands can be sampled within 4 to 6 hours of the shooting event, that's recommended. We do know through scientific studies that gunshot residue will stay on items of clothing longer because they get caught in the weave, things like that. It just adheres a little better. And so if samples can't be collected from the hands, it's sometimes recommended that if the investigator knows what the person was wearing, they can collect the clothing for us to sample it in the laboratory.
So typically after 4 to 6 hours, an evidence technician would be looking for clothes.
Yes.
Now, when they do a gunshot residue kit, how does it get to the crime lab?
There's a representative from the police department that will come to the laboratory and submit it into our evidence receiving section, where the case is given a criminal investigation laboratory number, and then it's entered into our database system for testing.
And then when it's entered in, is it kept in a secure location?
Yes, it is. There is a vault in the evidence receiving section where the evidence is kept until I pick it up for examination. And then it's in my custody or it's kept in a locked area in the section while testing is being completed.
So the items are kept secure in a secure location, limited access.
Correct.
And then once you're done with the testing, what do you do with the gunshot residue?
I will seal the kit up with the evidence seal and my initials and the date, and then return it back to the evidence receiving section where it's then returned back to the police department.
If I may,
Yes.
show you what's in MONTEZ stage exhibit number 407 and 408. And what are they?
These are copies of reports that I issued.
And that relates to your testimony today.
Yes,
And are you the custodian of records for these reports?
yes,
And did you make these reports
yes, I did.
in the regular course of business for the crime lab?
Yes,
And it records the events that you did reasonably soon after you did the testing.
yes.
And since you did the testing and the report, you had personal knowledge of both,
Yes,
and these would just be copies of your report.
yes.
I'll tender Western Marches 407 and 408. And offer into evidence at this time.
Objection.
All right, States Exhibit 407 and 408 are admitted without objection.
And when cases come to the crime lab, are they assigned a number?
Yes, they are.
And is this a unique number?
Yes, each case number from the police department will receive an associated criminal investigation laboratory number, which we call a CIL number.
And what would be the CIL number for this particular case?
It is 18-01116.
I'm gonna quote you.
Yes.
Let me hand you some exhibits. So do 410. $293. 405. $290. Going to begin by asking you about 402, 403, and 404. Exhibits. Do you recognize these exhibits?
Yes, I do.
And what are they?
These are 3 gunshot residue collection kits that were submitted to the lab that I examined.
And when they come to you, are they sealed and in a envelope that's been sealed with tape?
Yes, it looks like whenever these were originally submitted to the lab, they came in a brown paper bag, and then each of these items would have been sealed inside that brown paper bag.
And then when you seal them, I guess when you're finished with them, do you reseal them?
Yes, my seal is the pink seal that you see here, the pink tape, and it has my initials and the date that I sealed it on each of these items. I see that.
And I guess finding gunshot residue and using these kits to find gunshot residue on people or items utilizes a scientific theory of forensic science that's generally accepted.
Yes,
And the techniques that apply them are valid and they were properly applied in this case.
yes,
And so did you receive a gunshot residue kit from Benito Gallegos?
Yes, I did.
And what can you tell me about that?
I did not find any microscopic particles containing any combination of lead, barium, or antimony on the samples that were labeled right hand and left hand in that kit.
And what about the gunshot residue kit from Angel Guevara?
I did not find any microscopic particles containing any combination of lead, barium, or antimony on the sampling devices labeled right hand and left hand in his kit.
So no gunshot residue on the two.
Correct.
And the car that Benito Gallegos was in, the front edge vehicle, do you have the gunshot residue kit?
Yes.
And what can you tell me about that?
I did not find any gunshot residue on containing any combination of lead, barium, or antimony on the sampling devices in that kit. They were also labeled right hand and left hand because they had just used a hand kit to sample the vehicle.
What can you think? In addition, were you given, and on your next report, did you examine a short sleeve plaid shirt
Yes, I did.
that was taken from the vehicle, and what can you tell me about that?
I did not find any microscopic particles containing any combination of lead, barium, or antimony on the samples that were collected from the front right chest and sleeve area and the front left chest and sleeve area of that plaid shirt.
Now, you were also given clothing from the three defendants.
I have my copy. They're on the front of the desk here, on the front of your desk.
So in regards to the clothing that you received, let's begin with number 22, the black jacket and the camouflage shirt.
I found 4 particles containing lead, barium, and antimony, and 1 particle containing lead and antimony on the sampling device collected from the front right chest and sleeve area of the black jacket. I found 2 particles containing lead, barium, and antimony on the sampling device collected from the front left chest and sleeve area. I found 3 particles containing lead, barium, and antimony, and 1 particle containing lead and antimony on the sampling device collected from the front and back right cuff area. And I found 1 particle containing lead, barium, and antimony on the sampling device collected from the front and back left cuff area of the black jacket.
And in the second bag, number 21, the white long sleeve shirt and the white tank top.
On the white long sleeve shirt, I found 10 particles containing lead, barium, and antimony on the sampling device collected from the front right chest and sleeve area. I found 4 particles containing lead, barium, and antimony on the sampling device collected from the front left chest and sleeve area. I found 10 particles containing lead, barium, and antimony on the sampling device collected from the front and back right cuff. And 5 particles containing lead, barium, and antimony on the sampling device from the front and back left cuff on the white long sleeve shirt.
And number 23, the white shirt and the red shirt underneath. Well, the white and the red shirt.
Okay, on the red t-shirt, I did not find any particles containing any combination of lead, barium, or antimony on the sampling devices that were collected from the front right chest and sleeve area and the front left chest and sleeve area. On the white t-shirt, I found 1 particle containing lead, barium, and antimony on the sampling device collected from the front right chest and sleeve area. And I did not find any particles containing any combination of lead, barium, or antimony on the sampling device collected from the front left chest and sleeve area.
So in each of the 3 sets of clothing, you were able to find gunshot residue.
Yes.
And does it matter in terms of the number of particles that you found? Can you tell us anything about that?
So the number of particles is insignificant. It can't tell you who the shooter is, who was just standing near a shooter whenever the gun was fired. The only time the number of particles is significant is whenever you see the number 10. Because in our lab, we have a policy that we stop at 10 particles on a sample. So it's possible that there were more than 10 particles on the samples where I identified 10.
Now, with gunshot residue found on each of the 3 sets of clothing, what conclusion can you reach?
The only conclusion that I can reach is that those items of clothing where I did find gunshot residue could have come in contact with a discharged firearm or were in close proximity to a discharging firearm.
Past witness.
Yes, Ms. Pichon, you testified on direct examination, you testified 230 times?
Yes.
Okay. How many times have you testified as a defense witness?
A handful, probably. I would say around 5, probably.
5. So 225 times for the state and 5 times for the defense?
Yes, generally the state calls me. Whenever they don't, then the defense will.
Okay. So hypothetically, if someone fires 30 rounds, and if you fire a gun with your right hand 30 times, it's fair to say that you're in close proximity to a firearm, and those lead, barium, and antimony particles could fall on the right side of someone's body.
Correct.
Okay. And just like if I fire a gun 30 times, it's possible that particles could fall on my co-counsel's body.
Correct.
Okay. We don't know how far they go when they fall.
Right. It just depends on the conditions at the time of the firing that could affect how far the particles could travel from the shooting location and where they deposit.
Okay, and you can't tell which type of firearm was fired based upon GSR particles.
Correct.
But based upon your being an expert in this field, it's safe to say someone who fires 30 times, it's more likely that they're going to have a higher number of lead, antium, and I get the names wrong, the GSR particles than someone who fired a significantly less amount of times. Is that safe to say?
No,
So your numbers go up to 10, right?
correct.
And you only got to 10 with one individual. Is that correct?
I got to 10 on one item of clothing.
Okay. And do you recall which item of clothing that was?
That was the white long sleeve t-shirt.
Okay. Do you know who that corresponds to, which individual?
I do not.
Okay. Would it say on the bag which person it's pulled from, or how do you?
I could look and see if it does.
That'd be great if you could. Do you need to know what exhibit that is?
No. I will find it. There's not a person associated with that item of clothing on the bag.
Okay. Is there a long sleeve white shirt that was collected?
And I examined a long sleeve white shirt.
And was a tank top also in that same bag?
Yes, it was.
Do you, out of the three pictures that you see there, do you see one individual with a long sleeve white t-shirt?
Yes, I do.
And that's, I approached the publishing, and that's this individual right here. Correct.
Correct.
And you don't know any of these people's names.
No.
So this person had 10 particles of clothing where on their body or where on their shirt?
There were 10 particles of gunshot residue on the front right chest and sleeve area. And there were also 10 particles on the front and back right cuff area.
Okay. And so then how many particles were on the black jacket that you examined?
I found 5 particles on the front right chest and sleeve area. I found 2 on the front left chest and sleeve area. I found 4 on the front and back right cuff and 1 on the front and back left cuff.
Okay. And then on the white t-shirt, how many particles did you find?
I found 1 particle on the front right chest and sleeve area.
Okay. And you found none on the red shirt, is that correct?
Correct, which wouldn't be unusual because it's being worn as an undershirt. So it would make sense that gunshot residue could not be deposited through the other shirt.
Okay. So you're saying that it's not uncommon that the red shirt wouldn't have any particles?
Correct. If it's being worn as an undershirt, yes.
Okay. So if I were to tell you that the individual in the middle there is wearing a tank top underneath his shirt that you tested, and that did have particles, that would be unusual for you?
No, it wouldn't be unusual. That could possibly happen just from the 2 items being packaged together. It could be transfer in the bag.
Okay, so the white long sleeve shirt and the tank top having particles, that's not unusual to you because they're transferred in the same bag. But then the white t-shirt having 1 particle and the red t-shirt having no particles, that's not alarming to you, even though they're transferred in the same bag.
Correct.
Okay. And You test the front of the shirts, is that correct? You don't test the back at all?
Correct.
Why is that?
Because studies have determined that the front chest and sleeve area is where the gunshot residue will be deposited if a person fires a gun.
Okay.
It's the most likely area for us to find it.
And so when you fire a gun, there are GSR particles on the actual firearm.
Yes.
Okay. Did you test any of the pants in the case?
No, no pants were submitted to me for testing.
Password is.
Just a few questions. You were asked about the number of times that you testified to the state that you have testified to defense.
Yes,
The crime lab is independent, correct?
yes.
You're not beholden to SAPD or anything like that.
No, and I just testify for whoever calls me.
Now, in terms of the clothes, if clothes are collected, 8 or 9 hours later, or 8 to 10 hours later, did that make a difference?
It is possible that it could make a difference because just like activity can remove gunshot residue from hands, it could also remove gunshot residue from items of clothing, just like things like laundering and, any sort of mechanical removal of somebody brushing their shirt can possibly even remove gunshot residue.
So if someone's more active than the other ones, and then that could affect.
Yes.
What about the weapon that they use in terms of, are some guns dirtier or put out more GSR than others?
Yes, the deposition of gunshot residue, the number of particles that are created, the amount of gunshot residue that is expelled from the gun is variable. So each one of these primer caps will contain the same amount of the chemicals inside to cause that reaction. But some guns may have more open areas for these guns, for the gunshot residue particles to be expelled from. If a gun is dirtier, then there may be a lot more gunshot residue to be pushed out of those open areas. Also, the number of shots that are fired can make a difference because each time the gun is fired, it creates an additional exponentially increasing number of gunshot residue particles. And then also whenever we're talking about deposition, we have to talk about where did this happen? Is it outside? Because if the wind is blowing, it can blow gunshot residue possibly away from a shooter onto someone else, a bystander. If we're talking about being in a moving vehicle, then it's possible that the gunshot residue can be blown out of the vehicle just through the wind and away from the shooter and may not even deposit inside the car on the person who's shooting.
In fact, are there situations where someone, depending on the weapon, can fire a handgun and not have any GSR on it?
Yes, there are actually even types of ammunition that don't have this traditional primer that has the lead, barium, and antimony particles. And so that wouldn't create the gunshot residue particles that I'm looking for in my testing.
So the amount of GSR on a person, there are a lot of factors involved.
Yes, and that's why in the GSR community, we have proven over and over again through scientific studies that you cannot make any conclusion based on the number of particles that you find on a surface.
Thank you. I pass you over for any questions.
So, Ms. Vachon, you just testified on direct that the amount of times a firearm is fired affects how much GSR can be collected, right?
It affects how much GSR is created.
Okay.
And then deposition is a whole different animal. And that's where the variability comes into play.
Okay, so if I fire a gun 30 times and someone fires a gun 1 time, the person who fires the gun 30 times, it's based upon your understanding and your expertise, it's likely that they'll have more GSR.
No, I'm saying that the number of firings will create 30 times more gunshot residue than the firing of the other weapon. But that does not mean that more gunshot residue will be deposited on the person who fired 30 times. I just can't make that conclusion because we can't recreate the situation in a lab to be able to test how much gunshot residue should be deposited on a person. So I could never make that conclusion and say in court that I would expect more gunshot residue to be in one place than another.
Do you have any evidence in this case that any of the firearms or GSR that you collected came from a fired gun that did not contain bullets that had the particles that could detect GSR? That's a really poor question. Do you understand?
I didn't do any testing on the guns to know if the ammunition or the guns expelled a specific number of gunshot residue particles.
Okay, but you can't testify that any of the casings that were fired or the guns that were fired produced non-lead, barium, or antimony particles.
Correct.
Pass witness.
No further questions.
All right, is this witness excused or subject to recall?
Excuse.
All right, the rule has been invoked. What that means is you can't discuss your testimony with anyone. The only persons you can speak to are attorneys for the state of the defense. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, and now. Your next witness.
Judge, we'll call Sandra Ruiz.
Have you take a seat here, please? No, can you raise your right hand for me? Do you solemnly swear affirm the testimony you give will be the truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, you can lower your hand, have a seat, state your name for the record and spell it for us, please. Yes. All right.
My name is Sandra Ruiz, R-U-I-Z.
All right, state.
Thank you, Judge. Good afternoon, Ms. Ruiz. How are you doing?
Thank you, sir.
So what do you do for a living?
I work as a latent fingerprint examiner for the San Antonio Police Department.
Would you explain to the ladies and gentlemen of the jury what a latent fingerprint examiner does?
Yes. My duties are, I work and research assigned case workloads. I examine and compare latent prints that are lifted at crime scenes to determine if they're legible or not legible. I make AFIS, Automated Fingerprint Identification System, submissions and comparisons, and I write identification report on cases.
How long have you done this?
I've worked with fingerprints 27 years, and I've worked with latent prints 17 years.
What is the difference between fingerprints and latent prints?
Fingerprints are known prints. Latent prints are unknown, unseen prints.
Unknown that you're trying to compare to something else?
Correct.
And what sort of training do you have to have this job that you have?
I have first started off with fingerprint classification training. That's where I learned to read, interpret, compare, classify, and take fingerprints. I also have been to Advanced Latent Examiner School 1 and 2, held at the San Antonio Police Department. I have also been to the Latent Friction Ridge Comparison School, and that was held at the Department of Public Safety Law Enforcement Academy. And I also have palm print identification training as well, and that was held at the San Antonio Police Department.
So you've undergone training both with the San Antonio Police Department, Texas Department of Public Safety, and you've taken a bunch of classes and things?
Correct.
And do you have annual or every 2 years type of classes you have to take continuing education or anything?
Unfortunately, the city will not pay for all the extra schooling and all that. But we do have brochures that we'll read up on. We're involved in a group and we're always discussing latent prints.
So let's talk about comparisons of prints. What does that involve? What do you do?
The way a fingerprint, it's a one-to-one comparison. As far as fingerprints are concerned, fingerprints are usually compared with a magnifying glass. And it's on how friction ridges divide or end. And I'm looking for ridges that are taking on the same action in the unknown print as well as the known print.
And let me stop you real fast. When you talk about ridges, obviously we all have different fingerprints, right?
Yes, sir.
And the ridges are what we think of as the little lines.
The raised portion of the epidermis, the lines that you see on your fingertips and also on the soles of your feet.
So in essence, you are comparing those ridges from one sample to the ridges on another sample.
Yes, sir.
And this sounds pretty difficult.
On the eyes, yes.
Now, this is your job. You do this every day, correct?
Yes, sir. Oh, continuing, I'm looking at prints pretty much for most of the day.
And so how do they end up in your office or how do you end up examining them?
Correct. Crime scene investigators and or UEDIs, which are uniform evidence detectives, are out in the field. There's a crime, they go out there and lift evidence. Specifically, my job is I'm looking for the prints that are lifted at any crime scene. They lift them, put them into a safe deposit box at one of the substations. One of the 5 examiners, including myself, will go to central substation. We'll take them out of the safe deposit box and we'll bring them back to our office and immediately examine every individual latent jacket that is submitted to us. And we're looking for prints that are legible or not legible.
So let's talk about what determines legibility.
Legible means that there's enough points of identification within the friction ridges to make an identification and make an identification.
So in essence, just the tiny little edge of a fingertip might not be enough for you to examine properly.
Correct. Partial prints, and that's what we're submitted. Partial prints are submitted to us, whether sometimes the non-legible prints are basically smudges and there's not enough ridge identification points to make an identification and or an elimination.
Now, Ms. Ruiz, about 5 years ago, you obviously had the same job.
Yes.
And what identifying numbers or information do you use to say these prints are for this particular case?
It would be a case number.
Is that the same case number that the San Antonio Police Department has assigned to the case?
Yes, sir.
So back in 2018, February of 2018, were you handling a case, SAPD case number 18023237?
Yes, sir.
And how do you know that?
I have a identification report. I wrote an identification report.
And what did you do in this case?
I examined latent prints that were submitted for this particular case. And I was looking for legible prints. And I was able to make a manual comparison.
What is a manual comparison?
I used a known information, known prints, and I compared them to the unknown prints that were submitted.
Okay.
And the way I got that was from our records management system. A name was populated in there.
What was the name that was populated?
Richard MONTEZ.
Judge, may I approach?
Yes.
Ms. Ruiz, I'm going to show you what's been labeled and already admitted as State's Exhibit 283.
Yes, sir.
What is that?
It's the latent fingerprint jacket.
And so a jacket meaning the envelope?
The envelope, yes.
And how do you know what case it's connected to?
On the actual envelope, it's documented with a case number.
Is it that same case number I read to you?
Yes, sir.
Would you read that for me?
18023237.
And what other information is contained on that?
The date, the location.
What was the date? I'm sorry.
The date is February 3rd, 2018. The location was 515 South Rio. That means where the prints were developed, or lifted. And then the district number of 2350. The complainant's name,
And what name is listed?
Angel Guevara.
Okay.
The type of offense, this is showing to be an aggravated assault. And the prints obtained by L Patton, badge number 9446.
Is that Lindsay Patton?
Yes, sir.
Does she work with you?
Yes, she's in our immediate office now, in the
Okay.
identification office.
Okay. Now, what's inside that envelope, the jacket?
In this actual latent jacket are 5 latent print cards that were lifted at the crime scene.
Do you know what they were lifted from?
Yes.
What can you tell the jury?
This one particular card, the prints were lifted from a screen of a silver LG cell phone, item number 29. The second card, exterior top of Monarch 9mm Luger box. Third card was a display screen of silver Samsung item 28. The fourth card is a Smith & Wesson silver magazine. And the fifth card is from Black PT 111 magazine, item number 59.
Okay. And those 5 that you just read were placed in that jacket at some point, correct?
Correct.
Would that have been after you tested them?
They were submitted by Lindsay Patton
Okay.
before I examined them.
All right.
Then she
So-
submitted them.
What were the results of your examination?
The results were, I made 2 identifications.
And what were they?
One of the identifications was made to Richard MONTEZ, date of birth 1/30/85, DPS number 06568029.
Okay, now let me ask you, what did you link? What particular item of property? Because you mentioned an ammo box, you mentioned some magazines, some cell phone screen. What did it match?
This one in particular matched to the screen of silver LG cell phone item 29.
And what else did you match?
And the other item was off of the exterior top of Monarch 9mm Luger box.
Okay, and what did you learn from that?
I identified Juan Martinez's left index.
And the other 3 items were not, you weren't able to get any comparisons done?
I examined all 3 of these cards as well. They were not legible, meaning there was not enough to make an identification and or elimination, basically smudges.
We'll pass the witness. Thank you very much, Ms. Ruse.
Sir.
Defense.
So the fingerprint you found on an LG cell phone, does it tell us whether someone actually used that phone?
No,
Okay. Does it tell us the time that someone may have touched that phone?
oh, no, no, sir.
Does it tell us the place that someone may have touched that phone?
No,
And in regards to this Luger box, the print on that belonged to Juan Martinez, is that correct?
yes, sir.
And that was on a 9mm box?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And again, that fingerprint, it doesn't tell us whether somebody actually used any of those bullets inside that box.
Correct.
Now, did you receive any cards from fingerprints that were lifted from any weapons?
No, sir, just the magazine,
Okay. Do you know whether any weapons were attempted to have fingerprints lifted from?
not to my knowledge.
If that was done, you would have at least tried to see whether you could have made fingerprints or seen if there were any legible prints.
Yes, sir. Oh, yes.
But none, that to your knowledge have been done in this case.
Correct. This is what I received for this particular case.
Pass the witness.
So, Ms. Ruiz, let me ask you, you don't always necessarily get samples off firearms in a criminal case, do you?
No, not all the time.
And in fact, it would be up to whoever is trying to lift the prints before they submit them to you to determine whether or not there are any legible prints or even a partial print, right?
Correct.
And so if the person that's examining the firearms has not been able to note any even partial prints
I'm going
on,
to object to speculation, Judge.
That'll be overruled.
if they haven't been able to see any themselves, then they're not going to submit anything to you, right?
For the most part, no, sir.
It's not like a gun just ends up in your office and they say, hey, go ahead, Sandra, look at this thing.
Correct. That's correct. They don't.
All right. Nothing else. Thank you.
Now, a weapon such as a pistol, the ones that, do you have any personal knowledge in regards to what kind of weapons were recovered at the crime scene?
No, sir.
Okay. If they were pistols with a slide, those slides would require somebody to cock that back, right?
I would guess so. Yes, sir.
And so their fingerprints would likely be on top of that slide.
Not necessarily.
It's possible though.
It's possible.
Okay. To your knowledge, you know whether anybody even made any attempts to recover any prints from any weapon?
Not to my knowledge. I don't.
Pass the witness.
Ms. Ruiz, just real quickly, if someone has cleaned a firearm with, say, a cloth and WD-40 or some other grease, there might not be any prints on that gun.
Correct.
And if someone's had 8 or 10 or 12 hours before the gun is found by the police or something, all sorts of things could have happened.
Definitely. Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Do you have any evidence that these guns were cleaned?
No.
I have no further questions, Judge.
Nothing further. Thank
All
you.
right, is this witness excused or subject for
Yes.
recall? Defense? Excused or
Yeah,
subject?
excuse, Judge, my apologies.
All right, the rule has been invoked. What that means is you can't discuss your testimony with anyone. The only persons you're allowed to speak to are attorneys for the state and defense.
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Okay. I will.
Thank you. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take our break for the day at this point. This is our schedule for tomorrow and for Wednesday. So on tomorrow, we're going to start at 1:30. On Wednesday, it's going to be all day. I'm sorry. On Wednesday, it's going to be all day. So on Wednesday, we're going to start at 9:30. On Wednesday, I only have 2 cases and they're telling me it's going to take 30 minutes. So I'm having them here at before 9 so that we can make sure that that's done. And we'll start this up on Wednesday at 9:30. So I'm letting you know so that you can prepare your schedule. So tomorrow we'll start at 1:30 and on Wednesday at 9:30. And I'll remind you all again tomorrow when we will start on Wednesday. Okay. All right. Remember my rules. You all should be able to repeat this in your head by now. You're not allowed to start deliberating. There's to be no research. Everything that you need to know about this case will come from inside the courtroom. If you hear anything or see anything about this case, ignore it. All right. All right, everyone, please rise for the jurors.